Sword Art Online hit the anime community like crack in 2012. It was released at the perfect time for it to explode in popularity. It followed in the footsteps of another popular death game show, Future Diary. There was a renewed interest in the consumer virtual reality market in 2012. Then the popularity of anime in the Western world had just seen a huge resurgence after Attack on Titan's release. Sword Art Online's English dub released in the summer of 2013, coming out at the perfect time to capture the attention of these brand new anime fans. All the pieces fell into place for the anime to be a smashing success and to have a huge fandom backing it. Despite the show's popularity, Sword Art Online does not live up to the hyper popularity it had back in 2013. It is not a very well made anime in the slightest. The show suffers from abysmal pacing, horrible writing, a Mary Sue main character, and some egregiously disrespectful depictions of sexual assault. Because of this, there is no shortage of criticism online in discussion for SAO. If you look up Sword Art Online is bad on YouTube, you're going to be met with hundreds of results in which the main topic of discussion is Season 1. But in my opinion, there is a season that needs far more criticism. So recently, I went back and watched the show for the first time as an adult with a developed brain, and it was just as rough as I remember when I watched it so long ago. But what I did differently this time around was continuing the show and watching into Season 2, and holy Sword Art Online Season 2 is one of the worst seasons of anime I have ever watched. And I watch a lot of trash anime. So today, allow me to take you on the wild ride that is SAO Season 2, as I dissect its problems and tell you why Sword Art Online Season 2 is the worst anime I have ever watched. Spoilers for Sword Art Online Season 1, 2, and 3 ahead.
Would you bring her here? I thought we were friends.
What? I don't understand. What's the problem?
Hey, T-Dog. What is up in his house?
Are you crying?
To understand why Season 2 is such a disgrace, you need to at least be acquainted with Season 1. If you're already familiar with the show, I have provided timestamps in the description that allow you to skip to my analysis of Season 2, but if you're unfamiliar with Season 1 or need a refresher, let's begin. Our story starts on November 6th, 2022, when the VR MMORPG, or Virtual Reality Massively Multiplayer Online Role-Playing Game, Sword Art Online goes live. The game is played on a device known as the Nerve Gear, which uses a technology known as Full Dive Virtual Reality to create a 100% immersive game world. Essentially, the Nerve Gear is replicating the game in your mind while you sleep to make SAO seem like the real world. On the game's launch day, players find that they are unable to log out. They are then all informed by the game's creator, Akihiko Kayaba, that he has trapped them inside the game, and that if they die in the game, they die in real life. The Nerve Gear uses the same technology as microwaves to send signals to the brain. So Kayaba has made it so that when a player dies, the Nerve Gear turns its power output to the max and microwaves the player's brain, killing them. Players are also informed that if anyone in the real world attempts to remove the Nerve Gear, the game is programmed to detect it and kill them, meaning that there is no way out besides the one that Kayaba has created for them. And what is that way out? Well, it's quite simple. Players must clear all 100 floors reaching the top of the game's world, Aincrad, with the only thing blocking them being the dungeons and boss monsters that guard the entrances to each new floor. With that, our show begins. Our main character is Kirito, a beta tester for SAO and an all-around skilled gamer. As he progresses through the floors, he makes new friends, becomes one of the game's strongest players, and establishes a harem of women. Well, more of a pseudo harem of women, because that of course makes it better. He's in a relationship with only one of the characters, Asuna, but he's just such a tough aura farmer that every girl has to fall for him. The majority of the season is spent following Kirito's misadventures as floors gradually get cleared. Eventually, after a grueling battle to clear floor 75, Kirito realizes that Akihiko Kayaba is masquerading as Heathcliff, the leader of the largest in-game guild. Kirito realizes this because Heathcliff is just a little too good at the game, and that's suspicious. I am not joking. That is the actual reason. I hope that really sets the scene for the levels of writing that we are about to encounter. Heathcliff agrees to battle, and if Kirito wins, then everyone is freed. If not, the players must continue clearing the floors as originally intended. They battle it out and Kirito wins, freeing everyone from SAO after 2 years.
On November 7th at 2:55 p.m., the game has been cleared. Repeat, the game has been cleared.
But upon escaping the game, Kirito learns that his girlfriend, Asuna, has not woken up. He receives intel that she is somehow trapped in another VR MMORPG, Alfhelm Online, so he embarks into this new game to rescue her. Along the way, we learn that alongside Asuna, approximately 300 other SAO survivors are trapped inside Alfhelm Online, being forcibly transferred to ALO while SAO was shutting down. We also learn the identity of their captor, Nobuyuki Sugo, whose goal is to turn these people into mindless slaves. On Kirito's quest to take down Sugo, his sister falls in love with him. The portrayal of women in SAO is a major issue. Just keep this in mind for when I start discussing Season 2. And maybe not so fun fact, the studio that animated SAO also animated a little known show called My Little Sister Can't Be This Cute. I think that should really tell you what we're dealing with. Eventually, Kirito defeats Sugo, frees Asuna, and everyone else trapped in ALO. Sugo gets arrested in real life, and everyone lives happily ever after, until Season 2 that is. Before I start talking about Season 2, you should subscribe to the channel. It takes 2 seconds and helps me out more than you could possibly imagine, so please, consider subscribing today. Now let's get back to the video. Season 2 begins about 1 year after the end of Season 1 in universe. Kirito was enjoying returning to normal life with Asuna and company. But one day, Kirito gets contacted by an investigator working at Japan's Ministry of Internal Affairs. He would like Kirito to look into a murder case involving a new game, Gale Online. Despite new full-dive virtual reality technology not being able to kill you, a player in Gale Online has been linked to a death. Someone under the alias Death Gun, potentially one of the corniest names of all time,
and bring real death with this gun.
Fired a shot at another player on a live stream. When the shot was fired in game, the player died at the same time in real life. Kirito, while skeptical, decides to dive into Gale Online to get to the bottom of the mystery. To do this, he converts his character from ALO into GGO, copying his stats from one game into another. Kirito arrives in the game and is a woman. For some reason, Kirito's avatar is female, and a rare one at that.
Hate to break it to you, guy, but I'm a guy too.
Holy crap! Then that means you got the M9000 model! I'll give you 4, no, 5 for it! Sell it to me!
Gale Online strangely randomly assigns you an avatar. A rather baffling game design choice which leads to certain avatars being rarer than others. Kirito then wanders the city and he bumps into a green-haired girl named Sinon. Sinon, real name Shino Asada, is a 16-year-old girl from small-town Japan who moved to Tokyo to get away from the trauma of her hometown. When Asada was 11, she was accompanying her mom to the post office. While there, a robber storms in with a Type 45 Black Star handgun, demanding money from the staff. The robber was threatening her mom, so Asada jumped to protect her, biting and wrestling the robber. In the ensuing scuffle, Sinon gets the gun and is able to shoot him, killing the man. Years later, Asada is still haunted by this event and suffering from intense PTSD. Even the sight of someone doing finger guns scares her to death, a fact abused by a group of bullies at her new school that extort her. In an attempt to help her get over this trauma, she plays Gale Online, because while in GGO playing as Sinon, Asada feels confident and comfortable around guns. Which brings us back to Sinon and Kirito running into each other. Sinon mistakes Kirito as a woman and agrees to help show him around town and help him get stocked up with gear. They start by going to get Kirito some money, traveling to what is essentially an arcade game. The goal of the game is pretty simple: run to the end of the track without getting shot by the robot sitting at the end to win the jackpot. But as you get closer to the end, the robot's shooting speed increases. In playing this game, we learn about one of the fundamental elements of GGO: bullet lines. These lines are a defensive tool that shows predictions of where an opponent's shots will land. Kirito games the system to win the game by predicting the predictions.
You know, predict the predictions.
You predicted the predictions?
Hitting his mandated ore farming moment for the episode and winning plenty of money to stock his personal arsenal. Sinon then takes him to the market and explains the different types of guns within the game. She then asks what type of stats he has to figure out what weapon is most suitable for him. Here, we glean some minor insight on how the stat system for GGO works. And it is here I come to the first major flaw of Season 2.
This game is bad! Holy!
To buy into any piece of fiction, you need to be able to believe in the fictional world that you are watching. It does not matter how fantastical or crazy the world is, as long as the world is consistent and follows decently grounded rules within its power system, you can believe in whatever fantastical, magical girl, mecha anime bull happening. But the world of Sword Art Online is so poorly designed that I cannot buy into a single thing that is happening. Gale Online is a terribly designed game that is so illogical in its game design, I cannot even begin to immerse myself or care about what is happening on screen. Let me explain. While author Riki Kawahara might play video games, he is by no means a good game designer. Gale Online is nonsensical in almost every aspect of its design. It would genuinely have one of the worst player experiences if it existed in real life. GGO is the base of the entire season. If the base of the season is flawed and illogical, then guess what? Everything that rests upon it is going to be illogical as well, thus making the show a flawed work. But what exactly are the flaws with GGO? First is GGO's horrific stat system. The game has 6 customizable stats: AGI, DEX, LUK, SEN, STR, and VIT. This is where we run into our first issue with the stat system. We don't know how they work. In the show, only STR, or strength, is explained to the audience. The higher your strength stat, the more items you can carry and the heavier weapons you can wield. Now the other stats aren't very hard to figure out. AGI, or agility, makes you faster, and VIT, or vitality, increases your max HP. But even then, you can't infer every way that the stats affect the game. For that, you have to go to the GGO wiki. That is how I learned that AGI also increases your firing speed. But even after consulting the wiki, it is never explained what SEN and LUK do. Now we can very easily figure out that these are sensibility and luck, but like, what do? For luck, do your bullets have critical hits, or does it give you a chance of taking reduced damage? Furthermore, why is a stat like luck in a skill-based shooter game? Shooter games are all about applying your own mastery of the game's mechanics. I mean, just look how players react when their deaths are in their control.
Green, what's your problem, Green? What is your problem? Missile alone ramp.
Now imagine a world where competitive tournaments could be decided by a difference in your luck stat. People would be enraged. If there was one part of GGO that should make sense, it's the stat system, because said system is a critical component to this whole arc's plot. Jumping ahead in the story a bit, we learn that the reason Deathgun is committing murder is because he got screwed over on a stat spread that he made. Yes, I am serious. The guy Deathgun killed in the beginning was a huge GGO influencer. He told everyone that AGI types were the future of the game, but he was lying. Deathgun put all of his stats in AGI, and the meta of the game shifted away from AGI types and left Deathgun a weak, ineffective player. This led Deathgun to create his incredibly convoluted murder plan, which I will cover later, as an attempt to become the most feared player in GGO. In any other universe, these events would not happen because of the second major issue with the stat system. You cannot change your stats once you've set them. I'm sorry. What? That is one of the stupidest design decisions I have ever heard of. In almost every game that has stats, you were able to change them after you have set them. At the bare minimum, they are at least able to be reset back to the base levels to let you build your character back up from scratch. If Balloon's Tower Defense 6 can let you change your stats, then GGO should at least be able to do that. Just imagine this scenario. You were a player who has put all your stat points into stats like agility or vitality and very little into your strength. One day, the GGO devs add a new gun that you're super excited to try, but the weapon requires a high strength stat that you can't obtain because you dumped all your stat points into other categories. In this scenario, you were just locked out of content because you chose to play around AGI. No well-designed game punishes its players for meaningfully engaging with the mechanics provided to them. These stats are just the first problem with the game though. Next, we have the shooting mechanics. The way the shooting works in GGO is that your bullet will land randomly within this green circle. The higher your heartbeat is, the more the circle will grow and move around, and vice versa. My question is just, why? Similar shooting mechanics exist in games in our world with features like Bloom, where your bullets will land randomly within your crosshair, with your crosshair growing and climbing the longer you shoot continuously. Shooter games have these features because it's an effective way to represent the very real and complex effects of bullet spread, recoil, and muzzle climb that are present on real firearms. Ricky Kawahara probably saw these mechanics and thought, GGO's a shooter game, I need to include something similar, while missing the entire reason why shooters have these mechanics. Because GGO uses full dive virtual reality technology, they don't need to water down how guns work like your typical computer game does. You can just have your guns shoot like actual guns, and don't hit me with some about how it would be difficult to program. If you can program an entire immersive virtual world, then you can program some recoil when you shoot a gun. This attempt to simulate actual video games without putting in an ounce of thought into how your world works does nothing but detract from my immersion. Somehow though, when Reki does add a new unique mechanic, it is even worse. Character conversion has to be the stupidest idea in any piece of fiction I have ever seen. It's illogical in every way, shape, and form. Character conversion is a system that allows a player to cut their character from one VR MMO and paste it into another. This lets players retain similar stats, but loses the person their items and cosmetics. My question is just, how did the author even come up with something remotely this stupid? Genuinely, why would you ever use this system? Now, you may be misunderstanding me, so let me make it clear. You are cutting, as in removing your character from the original game and then moving it into the new game. So if you don't just play one game at a time, like literally everyone ever, you are locking yourself out of whatever game you converted from until you convert back, which at that point, you should just make a new account. Furthermore, the way Kirito's friends treat his conversion is ludicrous. They act as if he is dead and unable to come back. There is this ridiculous scene where Kirito's sister is eating breakfast with him and she gets super serious about him converting, talking about how she got a gut feeling that something was wrong. Then when she checked her friends list and saw that he was gone, she knew something was up. Kirito was just playing another game! Chill out, he can convert back! This also ties back into the stats being flawed, because what if your stats from one game suck for another? Are you just f***ed? This is especially an issue for GGO, a game where you cannot change your stats once they are locked in. No one in their right mind would ever use this system. They would all just make new accounts. Ricky Kawahara is not thinking when he's adding these features. It's random BS world building for the sake of world building. The last flaw with the game's design is bullet lines. Holy I have never seen a mechanic of a game that is more hostile to its players than bullet lines. As previously described, bullet lines are a defensive tool that trace a predictive line for where an enemy shots will land. Why on God's green virtual earth would you let this be in a shooter game? This defeats the entire point of the game. If you were able to see the bullets coming, then you could just dodge them. What makes games like Counter-Strike interesting is your positioning on the map. You need to plan your routes to the point, how to take your corners, what angles to hold, how many people should travel together, etc, etc. Because you don't know where and what your enemy is aiming at. If CS had obnoxious red lines pointing out of everyone's guns, there would be zero reason to play the game with anything resembling strategy. It would just transform into who has faster reflexes the game. Because the only skill you would need is the ability to dodge bullets. The game would just evolve into bum rushing and strafing, which is exactly what Kirito does. Apologies for breaking up the recounting of the show here, but you just gotta see how stupid this shit is. Returning to our story, Kirito is still shopping for gear with Sinon and decides to pick up a photon sword lightsaber as his main weapon. Yes, Kirito uses a sword in a shooter game. Also, why is there even a full-blown sword in this game? Whatever. He then enters the Bullet of Bullets tournaments with Sinon in hopes of locating Death Gun. During his first match, Kirito takes advantage of how stupid bullet lines are to win his match. He charges the opponent and uses the bullet lines to cut down his opponent's shots with the photon sword. This allows Kirito to close the gap and win his match. By the way, this exchange isn't played as Kirito exploiting a flaw in the game's design. No. It's treated as Kirito being the fastest, most skilled player who has ever graced GGO. Reki Kawahara is not self-aware enough to see the flaws in the game that he has created. So Gun Gale Online is a terribly designed game that takes you out of the viewing experience. I spent more time thinking about what agility and luck do and how idiotic bullet lines are than actually engaging with the show's ideas and characters. Which, speaking of characters,
I've been playing MMOs a long time, Diabo, and if there's one thing I've learned, it's that lions do not concern themselves with the opinions of sheep.
You are so wise.
Kirito is a terribly flawed main character, and not in the good way of having traits and issues that need to be worked through leading to development. No. Kirito is a Mary Sue, or a character who is free of essentially all weaknesses and flaws. This was a problem in the show's first season, but at least it made sense there. Kirito, being the best player in SIO, had reasoning behind it. He was part of a small group of beta testers for the game, and he was for all intents and purposes a NEET who would spend hours gaming and researching SIO's mechanics. Granted, this led to some ridiculous scenes.
If your numbers are high enough, you're invincible. MMOs that use leveling systems are unfair that way.
But at least there was a reason. Plus, Kirito did have a bit of an arc and he developed, even if it wasn't the deepest or most advanced. He started as a socially awkward loner who didn't trust anyone and doubted his own abilities after failing to protect his party, leading to their untimely deaths. As the story progressed though, Kirito began to open up to others and left behind his loner ways. He also completed his hero's journey by saving Asuna from ALO and freeing all those trapped in the virtual world. So come season 2, Kirito is a complete character. There are no new avenues for him to explore. He's the best thing since sliced bread for the gaming world. Because of this, despite entering a new game he should be bad at, Kirito immediately excels. He clears the dodging game with ease, then in BOB he mops the floor with his competition, discovering a brand new game-breaking strategy, even though he's been on the game for less than a day. It is so boring to see Kirito breeze through anything even resembling conflict. Eventually though, it seems like Kirito will meet his match when he and Sinon get pitted against each other in the tournament. Right before the tournament began, Kirito fessed up to Sinon and revealed that he is actually a man. Sinon, very rightfully, gets pissed off at him and vows to kill him in the tournament. Kirito very flippantly talks trash about her, which somehow gets under her skin. A girl who has dozens of hours on the game somehow gets totally thrown off her game by Kirito, because Kirito is not allowed to be challenged, of course. He has to be the best and most powerful gamer in all of the land. Meaning, any true rival has to get nerfed to all hell to allow Kirito to be the GOAT. Thus, Sinon loses to Kirito in their tournament match. He gets into her head so much that her heart rate never lowers during the match, meaning she can't land a shot on him. Another reason the shooting mechanics of GGO suck, because in any other universe, Sinon would have won this despite her nerves. Kirito is able to beat her while also trying to see if he can get any information about Death Gun out of her. GGO's poor game design claims another victim here, as despite Sinon resigning from this match, it doesn't matter who wins this round because they're both qualified for the next phase of the tournament, because it's only logical that the single elimination bracket style tournament allows for both of them to move on to the next phase. Whatever. Now, Reki Kawahara might have realized that Kirito was maybe doing way too much Mary Sue bullshit it needs to have some development. But how do you give development to a character that's already perfect? Well, you just retcon in trauma and regress the character for no reason, of course. Slightly going back in time, Kirito has a run-in with Deathgun right after his first BOP match. Kirito gets asked if he's the one, referring to the Kirito who saved everyone from SAO. For some reason, this sends Kirito into a terrified state of shock as he tries to rattle his brain into remembering who he's talking to. Kirito then realizes this guy is a member of Laughing Coffin, a guild of players from SAO who would intentionally kill others. From his voice, Kirito is able to deduce that he was a Laughing Coffin member who he captured during a large raid on a Laughing Coffin hideout, which is something that we are never shown in Season 1, by the way. Rather perplexingly, this causes Kirito to spiral mentally, giving us this weirdly forced arc where Kirito is debating if he's a moral person because he killed someone in SAO. I'm sorry, but this is incredibly stupid. This is entirely opposite of how Kirito had been characterized throughout the entire series. He's been a cocky, self-assured gamer for essentially the whole show. He also kills a different Laughing Coffin member in Season 1, but is totally unaffected, so this character arc just feels entirely out of left field, like it was only inserted for melodrama. This brings us to one of the worst written scenes in the entire season. And trust me, the competition for that title is very fierce. Because Kirito has been doing this investigation into Deathgun for Japan's Ministry of Internal Affairs, he was given a hospital room and a nurse to watch over him for his safety while he dives into GGO. This nurse was the same one who cared for Kirito while he recovered from his time stuck in SAO. Before his dive session for the Bullet of Bullets finale, Kirito confides his fears of being a bad person to this nurse. As Kirito spills these worries out to her, she says arguably the stupidest thing I have ever heard.
When you say you killed someone, I don't even know what that means.
What the f are you talking about? What do you mean you don't know? You literally helped rehabilitate Kirito after his time in SAO. You know what SAO is, right? If so, then you understand what he means when he says that he killed someone. He means he experiences one for one the sensation of killing someone. What the f are you talking about, nurse? Am I missing something? Please tell me in the comments if I am misreading the situation, because this makes literally no sense to me at all. This is the dumbest exchange I have ever listened to, ever! This exchange is the entire reason for this video's existence. Here's a video from when I was first watching the season and I got to the scene.
I just got a video idea because I want to talk about how upset this scene that I'm just watching made me. I'm actually pacing around my room in anger. And she just says, I can't even express, I don't even, I can't even comprehend what you're going through. I don't even know what it means to kill someone on Sword Art Online. What the f are you talking about? Yes, you do. You rehabilitated him after the thing. How the do you not know what it means? He's saying that he took 2 human lives. How the do you not know this? How the did you get through medical school? Did they not brief you? Did you just go, oh, he was trapped in video game? How? Hey, I want to make a video talking about how this show's writing is. I'm getting pissed.
This scene is indicative of all of the problems with Season 2. It is a product of thoughtless writing that does not consider any of the context that surrounds it. Also, this scene isn't helped by the very distasteful jokes between the nurse and Kirito.
Bon voyage, you super stud, you.
Back to the plot, Kirito dives into GGO one more time to compete in the Bullet of Bullets finale. The finale is no longer formatted like a traditional tournament. Instead, in the finale, 30 players will fight in a battle royale until one of them is left standing. It is within this tournament we come to the true worst part of Season 2. The most damning reason as to why SAO Season 2 is the worst anime I have ever watched. Let's talk about how the show treats Sinon. The following section contains discussions of pedophilia and sexual assault. If you are sensitive to any of these topics, I recommend skipping to the end of the video. Despite Kirito being the main character, Sinon is the main avenue used to explore the Phantom Bullet arc's major themes, those being the dynamics between the sexes and online communities, and video games as a form of escapism. This makes Sinon the most interesting and deepest character SAO had seen to date, which makes what happens next an absolute shame, because while I can forgive poor game design or a Mary Sue main character, I cannot forgive how Sinon is portrayed. We return to the BOB finale, where Kirito sneaks up on Sinon. She is still mad at him, even more so after her loss to him, but Kirito is able to convince her not to kill him. He uses the position Sinon is in to overlook a bridge. In this position, they watch as Deathgun kills 2 players, after which they disconnect from the game. This disconnection from the game signals to Sinon and Kirito that Deathgun isn't some fraud and that he is more than likely actually killing players. Now more concerned than ever, the two of them hatch a plan to eliminate him from the tournament before he can kill anyone else. They plan on luring him out to the city area to get a drop on him, but before they are able to, Deathgun ambushes Sinon. And right here, across the next hour of television, we will watch the real-time character assassination of Sinon. Now up close and personal with Deathgun for the first time, Sinon is able to see the gun he uses on his victims, a Type 45 Blackstar, the same weapon that is deeply rooted in Sinon's trauma. Just like how she is in real life around depictions of guns, Sinon becomes unable to act, but right before she dies, Kirito swoops in and saves her. Kirito loads her onto this large motorcycle type of vehicle, and they begin to flee into the desert area of the map, but Death Gun is in hot pursuit right behind them. In theory, this scene is an incredibly realistic and thoughtful representation for those with PTSD, but there is critical context I did not mention yet that instead turns this into something that feels incredibly disrespectful. Before the final round of BOB, there is a scene of Sinon in real life venting about how Kirito has been treating her to one of her friends, Shinkawa Kyoji. Shinkawa is one of her friends from school, an avid player of GGO, and Sinon's biggest supporter. While she rants, she talks about wanting to defeat Kirito in the tournament and mime shooting him. Shinkawa then points out that she just did a finger gun to her great surprise. This scene is very clearly included to show that Sinon is finally moving past her trauma, and that by playing in the Bullet of Bullets tournament, she is making leaps and bounds of progress. At least, that's what would be happening here if Reki Kawahara intended to tell a thoughtful story about PTSD. Returning back to the tournament with this context, Kirito asks Sinon to turn around and shoot him with her sniper rifle before he closes the gap and kills them. Sinon though was unable to, due to how rattled she is. She can't steady her heart rate enough to take the shot. It is only with Kirito's guidance that she can calm herself enough to do it. But the damage has already been done to Sinon as a character. No longer is she a strong, capable badass. Instead, she's been transformed into a helpless damsel in distress that Kirito must save. Because for Kirito to remain this perfect god emperor of the VR MMO world, Reki has deemed it necessary to make him the savior of everyone around him. So to accomplish this, Sinon's character must suffer. Her development has to be wiped clean. Because Kirito can't save a competent character, it's much easier for him to save a damsel in distress. Instead of having an empowering scene where Sinon further overcomes her past and fights against Death Gun, Reki Kawahara weaponizes Sinon's PTSD as a tool to uplift Kirito and further transition him into a Mary Sue, which just feels very disrespectful to people who actually have PTSD and to Sinon as a character. The two of them reach a hiding spot in a desert cave. Sinon breaks down from the stress and crawls into Kirito's lap. Sinon explains her past gun trauma with Kirito, and they work through her past together. It is also here that they logic out the stupidly convoluted murder plan Death Gun is enacting. Death Gun is targeting powerful players who live alone. One person places the in-game avatar Sturban, this person paralyzes the targets and enacts the in-game killing. Meanwhile, in real life, another person breaks into the player's home and injects them with a heart-stopping drug at the exact same time the Sturban avatar is killing in-game. This creates the illusion that Death Gun is truly killing through the game. Wait, but how did they figure out where these players lived? Well, when you sign up for Bullet of Bullets, you have to enter your real-life information into a terminal in-game. Death Gun just screen-peeked when these people signed up to see their addresses. Another big win for GGO's f***ass game design. Streamer mode on Fortnite has more privacy measures. Holy all of this is in the name of becoming the most feared player in the VR MMO RPG world. Literally none of this would have happened if GGO was a good game, by the way. This also would not even remotely happen in the real world. All of the hoops that would have to be jumped through for Death Gun's murder plot to succeed are ludicrous. It is while all this pretty important information is being revealed to the audience that the second major issue with Sinon is brought into full display. For the next 2 episodes that they are in this cave, the camera sexualizes the out of Sinon to an egregious extent. If there was a checklist of ways to objectify a character, it's like the director was trying to mark off every single one of those boxes while in this cave. There is really no other way to describe these camera angles besides perverted. So many butt and upskirt shots. These shots also aren't helped by the animators working overtime to exaggerate all of the features of her body. There is an obscene amount of detail added to parts of her body where it is just wholly unnecessary. For heaven's sake, they draw and shade her ass crack. Like, what the are we doing? In case you forgot, Sinon is 16 years old. She is a minor. But what's even more outrageous is how Sinon's objectification is enabled by her character design. Let's take a moment to really examine what Sinon is wearing. Look at all these unnecessary gaps in her clothes. She has chest, hip, and thigh windows, but easily the most disturbing part of the outfit is the window above her crotch. Why is there a gap there? What are we doing? She is 16. Why is she wearing this? At least the other parts of her design are things you could normally find in fashion, but a crotch window? Reki Kawahara, what the hell is your problem? She is also in these crazily small shorts that allow for more of her butt to be shown off like I talked about before. Again, very gross. It's also just Sinon this is happening to. Despite Kirito also having a female GGO avatar, he gets the luxury of layers and thick armor, a sickening and sexist double standard. Zooming out from here, it isn't just this cave scene where the camera is used to objectify Sinon. Throughout the whole season, there have been these distasteful depictions of her. The show especially likes to take advantage of the fact that Sinon uses a sniper rifle and focuses on her butt as she lays down to shoot. The show has, in no uncertain terms, communicated to the audience that Sinon is supposed to be viewed as a sexual object for the male gaze. This in itself is problematic, but in a second here, this is going to destroy the thematic messaging of Season 2. Remember, Sinon is representative of the relationships between men and women online. This will be very important soon. Returning to the cave, Sinon and Kirito start getting very touchy with each other. Like, y'all are doing way too much. Hello, Kirito, you have a girlfriend at home? Kirito is genuinely like the founding father of micro-cheating. The show even brings attention to this when Sinon says,
"Wave to the audience, unless you got someone back at home you don't want seeing this."
Oh yeah, the Bullet of Bullets finale is being live streamed and all of Kirito's friends are watching, which is about to become very relevant as Asuna senses Kirito is in some sort of mortal danger because of the Death Gun player, and she rushes to the hospital he is playing from to check on his well-being. At the same time in-game, Sinon and Kirito set up their master plan to take out Death Gun. Kirito is gonna stand out in the open and wait for Death Gun while Sinon uses her sniper to kill him. Death Gun does eventually arrive, but Sinon is unable to take the shot to kill him because Death Gun uses his own sniper to destroy the scope of hers. So Kirito and him just duke it out. It is here where we get the very lazy conclusion to Kirito's arc. He simply remembers Death Gun's username from SAO, which lets him move on from any moral hangups he was having. Then Kirito says Death Gun's SAO name out loud, and this catches Sturban off guard, allowing for Kirito to cut him up and win the fight. The guy's name was Red-Eyed Zaza, by the way. You really can't make this shit up. Also, the funniest moment of the season happens during this fight. Asuna arrives at the hospital where Kirito is, and she sees that his body is going through a lot of stress during this fight. Kirito's virtual daughter Yui, truly there is no time to explain, is accompanying Asuna over the phone. Since, well, she's virtual and has no physical form, Yui tells Asuna to hold Kirito's hand so he feels her presence, which in turn will motivate him to keep fighting. Then, Yui says to put the phone on his hand as well so that he can feel her presence. And somehow, this works and it makes Kirito fight better?
Since I can't touch anything in your world, hold it for me, too.
I'm sure he'll feel your hand too. I know he will. We'll cheer him on, together.
With Sturban taken out of the tournament, the rest of the players cleaned up by Kirito, Sinon, and others, and Kirito now ready to track down the members of Death Gun in the real world, it is just Sinon and Kirito left standing. Sinon blows them up with a grenade so that the tournament ends in a tie. Just like that, the third bullet of bullets is over. Since Sinon was nearly killed by Death Gun, it is safe to assume that someone was in her house waiting to strike. Kirito and her realize this in the cave, so upon her waking up from GGO, she checks her whole apartment but finds no one. It is then when her doorbell rings. But it's no one dangerous, it's just her friend from earlier, Shinkawa. He was coming over with pastries to celebrate Asuna winning BOB. He congratulates her on her win before turning to ask her out. Previously in the season, Shinkawa had made advances on Asuna, but she rejected him, telling him to wait until after BOB was finished. But even though it's over, Asuna still isn't ready to date. This sends Shinkawa into a rage and he forces himself on top of her. Here, Shinkawa begins sliding his hands under her clothes while revealing that he is one of the members of Death Gun, where he confirms that what Sinon and Kirito thought was happening with Death Gun is what was actually going on. He explains that GGO was his entire life. He gave up on all real-world aspirations to become the best player, but he got screwed over by following the advice of building your character around AGI. So Shinkawa came to his brother to complain. This brother being the laughing coughing member Red-Eyed Zaza. With the help of his brother, Shinkawa's complaining gradually transformed into a murder plan for revenge. They plan to use their parents' status as doctors to get into a hospital and steal heart-stopping drugs and a master keycard, an item that hospitals have in this universe that unlocks any card reader door, because that makes sense. Then they would enact their very contrived murder scheme. Because if word got around that there was a powerful player that could kill people through the game, then they would quickly rise to become the most feared GGO player, avenging Shinkawa's previous failure. Sinon just so happened to be on that top list of players, which is unfortunate for Shinkawa, as he was in love with her because he viewed her like a real-life GGO character, someone who used a gun to take down a bad guy. This dude is up. The scene gets scarier as Shinkawa grows more deranged as he talks about them running away together while he slides his hand further into her clothes. Asuna channels her inner Sinon and fights back against Shinkawa. The two of them get into a scuffle in which Shinkawa is seemingly attempting to sexually assault her. But before things can get any worse, Kirito bursts into Asuna's apartment and incapacitates Shinkawa. See, while in the cave, Kirito had agreed to come over to her apartment to check on her in case there was still a Death Gun member in there when she woke up. This forward thinking now saves Asuna. Although anything this scene is trying to accomplish is undermined by the show itself. Very clearly, this scene is not attempting to paint Shinkawa in a positive light, but with how the show has been shot up to this point, any attempt to condemn his actions here falls flat on its face, because the author Reki Kawahara is a hypocrite. He clearly does not care about sexual assault enough to handle the topic with the sensitivity it deserves, because for 13 episodes, he has used the show, through outfits and camera angles, to objectify Sinon without consent. His show is antithetical to what the scene should be messaging to the viewer, so the scene reads more as essay for the sake of having dark and edgy themes, which shows a repulsive lack of care for those affected by the things that you were including in your story. This lack of care for the show's content is what makes it such a revolting piece of media. No thought is being put into how important things like PTSD and sexual assault are handled, and that is what is creating all these problems for Sword Art Online Season 2. SAO Season 2 is a terrible work of fiction because author Reki Kawahara does not care about what he is writing. He is putting in zero thought to what makes logical sense for the story. No thought was put into what game mechanics make sense for the world of Gun Gale and the broader world. No care was involved in creating the story arc Kirito is supposed to go through. Certainly no care was put into Sinon's portrayal and how that affects the themes she's meant to embody. Frankly, that is terrible. SAO Season 2 could have been an incredible work that dissects real complex topics. Sinon had so much potential to be a terrific character. The exploration of gender relations in video games and escapism online are fascinating topics. Seeing how Sinon uses GGO to cope with the trauma of her past sounds like an alluring proposal. Instead, the audience is greeted by her being unable to move past her trauma using gaming unless Kirito is there to save her. Then, the idea of exploring male and female relationships in the gaming world crumbles. The show seemingly attempts to bring to light how wrong it is that there are very few safe spaces for women to enjoy video games without harassment from men. But then, it proceeds to do exactly what it is preaching against by objectifying Sinon at every given opportunity. So instead of having a powerful and harrowing tale centered around exposing the harassment women face online, we are left with the sexist husk that is Sword Art Online Season 2. What a f***ing shame that wasted potential is. Let's just get this over with. There's not that much left. Shinkawa gets arrested and tried for the crimes he committed. Kirito reports back to the man who hired him for the job with all of the information he has gathered. Then Kirito's friend group organizes a sweet event for Sinon. They found a woman who was in the post office the day of the robbery. The woman thanks Sinon for what she did. She goes on to explain that her killing the robber that day undoubtedly saved lives. This helps Sinon come to terms with her past and begins her process of truly moving forward. With that, the Phantom Bullet arc nearly comes to a close. All that's left is for every member of Death Gun to get arrested. With Shinkawa in custody, it should only be a matter of time before they all get brought to justice, right? Wait, the Death Gun arc doesn't get resolved until Season 3? And there's 10 episodes left in Season 2? And that covers an entirely different plot? And it's somehow even worse than the Phantom Bullet arc? Oh, there's gonna be a second video, isn't there?